What's going on, Captain Paul here? Just gonna make sure everything's kind of all set up properly. Yep. All right. So, impromptu stream. I'm gonna be wrapping up the season previews. Been kind of doing a lot of editing, doing a lot of videos, just kind of working whenever I can. So, some people might kind of watch this in the aftermath. I might have to go through the last couple streams because I did a stream prior with this and kind of like upload them individually. A little bit worried that having like 10 uploads in the span of like a few hours would be a pain in the ass. But we're going to wrap up the season previews, kind of finish this up. I got two teams left in the Central Division. Got the St. Louis Blues and the Winnipeg Jets, and then just going to have to go right through the Pacific. The only team I have done for the Pacific Division thus far has been the Seattle Kraken. So, if you do chat during the stream, I want to kind of interact when I can. I apologize if I kind of go a little bit heavily focused. I'm just trying to get through these. Unfortunately, I think I even said it in the last stream, I actually had most of these done, and then the file got corrupted in Adobe Premiere. So just like my luck, I'm going through this right now. So we're going to start off here. We'll start off with the St. Louis Blues, kind of going with cat friendly, and see how we feel like the Blues are going to do this upcoming season. Now, let me actually pull up the standings as well, so I can kind of have that as a kind of a comparison of how they're going to do, how much more of an improvement they're going to do, and if the NHL website would load. But let's go right into the St. Louis Blues. Please no advertisements. They have $281,000 available in cap space, so I mean, quite a bit of money. And the Blues aren't, I mean, it's been a few years at this point, but not that far removed from having the greatest trophy in all of sports. And as you see, still have pretty much all the draft picks, couple second round picks in this upcoming draft, couple like 2 2s and 2 third round picks. Let's get right into the Blues. So, St. Louis, if this would load, it'd be great. No, it's not going to load. St. Louis did not have a good season last year. It was kind of, it's just very rough, to put it very mildly. Now, I apologize. I'm having to kind of go the roundabout way of doing this because the NHL website likes to be buggy. There we go. Okay, now it uploaded. Whatever. Kind of going into the Central, St. Louis, sharing the tab. St. Louis did not have a great season. It was 37 wins, 38 losses, 7 overtime losses for 81 points. They weren't as bad as the Coyotes or the Blackhawks, but they definitely didn't live up to certain expectations a lot of Blues fans had. They thought they could be at least in the conversation of being in a wild card spot. Is it because the Blues don't have any talent? I don't think it's that. Buchnevich, Robert Thomas, Kyrou, I think are very good. I think that's a real good quality top line. I mean, geez, like two of those, one of the players over a point per game, one of it's near. And, that's a very solid top line. So for me, when I'm looking at the Blues, and they're young, Buchnevich being 28, Thomas and Kyrou being 24 and 25, and they should keep getting better. Now, they're getting paid quite a bit of money, so you're expecting them to produce to that clip. And with the cap going up, the Blues should be in a situation, whether it be next year or the year after, they could keep adding a little bit of talent. Now, in the second line, it, isn't bad either. Brandon Schenn, Brandon Saad, and Kasperi Kapanen. Now, Kapanen is one of those players that I thought could have been a bit better than he has been in his career thus far. But if he kind of lives up to, if he scores around 30, 40 points, that's not amazing production in your top 6. Brandon Schenn is a quality hockey player, 65 points out of a second line player. That's really good production. That's kind of where you want them to be, around like 50, 60. And Brandon Saad, you're hoping in a full season, around 40 points, hopefully 44 plus points. You're hoping, that's a decent enough second line production. Then going into their third line with Vrana, Kevin Hayes, and Sammy Baez. Vrana is one of those players that he was dealing with some issues. And a point per game pace throughout his career. Vrana has shown that he can be a very good goal scorer. He's going to be one of these players, if the Blues are going to be anything of substance, they're going to need him to produce. Now, looking at his career, and he went to Washington, to Detroit, then over to St. Louis. Look at Washington. couple seasons of 20 plus goals. Shortened seasons, he still had around that, like a 2021 in a total season, 50 games played. He had 19 goals, 17 assists for 36 points. So that's easily another 20 goal season on pace for that. And he has good traits. It's just him being available has been the problem. I mean, last time he played anything over 60 games was 2019-20. But if you look at the point per game pace with Verona over the last few years, I mean, he has done relatively decent. And hopefully with the St. Louis Blues, this whole fresh start, Verona could be a guy, in my personal opinion, that should be, talent-wise is probably maybe a better fit in that second line role. But if Verona can find his game and maybe score, if he can play around 70, 80, maybe 70, possibly 80 games in a season, stay available, not, he had some off-ice demons, but if he could stay available for the St. Louis Blues, I could see him being around a 50-plus point scorer. I think the talent is easily there. Then you have Kevin Haves. He's a solid forward in his own right. Sammy Baez. He's decent enough. If you could get an upgrade, I think it'd be good. But, I mean, for $1 million, you can't really complain about that production. And then on the fourth line, a name I definitely am going to butcher, Toro Pichchenko, Sundqvist, and Neighbors. I mean, decent enough in a fourth line role. Young players and Neighbors, hoping, he keeps developing, drafted 26th into 2020 draft. You're hoping he becomes something viable at the NHL level. And going into, so when I'm looking at the forward group, there's talent here. I think maybe a little bit underneath the radar for the Blues, because when I look at them on paper and some of the potential, I could see the Blues having a pretty good offense. Is it going to be the top elite offense in the NHL or the Western Conference? No, but they got some players here. If they stay healthy, they'll be able to produce some points, and some of them are still relatively on the younger side. Going to the defense here. So I feel like the biggest guy that people complain about, the biggest guy they complain about on this roster would be Torey Krug. He was talked about being available in trades. He was talked about refusing that trade request and how he wouldn't move on and how he's putting the Blues in a precarious situation. And Krug kind of came out and said, like, hey, like, I have a family. I signed this contract. I want to, wear the blue note on my sweater. I don't blame players for the no movement clauses. I don't blame them if they don't want to waive their no movement clause. Like, they're the ones that signed that contract. Whereas if they didn't have that, they could be ended up shipped off to some terrible team and just, be thrown in the wind. So I don't blame Torey Krug. He's got a family trying to raise it. And, is he great defensively? No, he's not. But the Blues signed him understanding you brought him in as like a power play specialist, a good offensive D-man. If you watch Torey Krug play, and I'm a Bruins fan, and I watched him throughout his career in Providence and in Boston, was he a great defender? No, he was never a great defender. He was like average at best at his elite defensive seasons, and he more made up for it on the offensive side. If you're relying on him to be a shutdown defender, you're in a world of hurt. And that's why I wasn't really mad when Krug moved on. I didn't think he was worth that amount of money, especially for what he gives you defensively. But this is the contract that they signed. So with Leddy, Parayko, Falk, I mean, you have quality defensemen. Krug is good on the offensive side of the ice. Scandella and Rosen. And I'm not trying to be a jerk when I say this, but I think due to Krug, the defense takes a hit. I think they're probably average at best. When you're relying on Krug for top 4 minutes, I think you're in a rough situation. He's kind of one of those defensemen that you need to be in the right place at the right time. If he is in your top 4, you need your bottom pairing to be extremely good, and you need them to be defensively responsible and decent in transition. I'm just not as sure with the Blues right now if they're good enough defensively. I think that's still going to be a place of hurt. But hopefully I'm wrong. I'm hoping Torey Krug proves me wrong and just has an amazing Norris candidate type season. But it has not been great defensively for them. Like I said, at best, I think they're average. I think they're they got some players here that I don't mind. I think have good quality, but I think having a guy like Torrey Krug on your back end does hurt you in the defensive side of the game. Getting into goaltending, you got Jordan Binnington and Joel Hofer. Hofer's a young goaltender, 6 games last season. So, I mean, I'm not, he's a backup. Binnington is the guy. When Ville Husso was there and he got moved to Detroit, and, they picked Binnington because they offered him that contract. Binnington gave them a Stanley Cup. So I'm not trying to say he's a terrible player or he's awful or anything that crazy. He had some good moments for the Blues. But in 61 games played, a 3.31 goals against average, and an 894 save percentage, that's just not good enough. And Binnington has these flashes of fantastic saves, shows his athleticism, but there's times where the defense isn't great in front of him last season. It wasn't great. But Binnington is no longer the guy that won them that cup. He's looking like a massive overpay. Kind of going into Binnington's stats. It isn't just like last year was the only really bad year for Binnington. Let me just exit this out. I mean, he's kind of been on a downward slope since that magnificent run, right? 2019, 2020 just wasn't that great. I mean, it was okay. It was no, that's fair. That's unfair. Solid season, 912 save percentage, 2.56 goals against average. 2021, see a little bit of a dip. 910 save percentage at 2.65. Then in the 21-22 season, it took a little bit of more of a drop off. 901 save percentage at 3.13 goals against average. And then last year, the wheels kind of came off. You see in his numbers, it's just constant downward trend. Now, is all this on Binnington? No, it's not. Some of is the roster construction and the defensive structure in front of him. But Binnington's he runs hot. And I think he mentally takes himself out of games. Like, there were some moments where he would get into fights or he'd get all fired up. But I think he's more focused on, pumping up his team or getting into physical confrontations than actually stopping a puck. And I think it's a hindrance to his team. I think Binnington's still got very good talent. I think that's still in him. But do I believe that Binnington is like top 5, top 10 goalie in the NHL? No. Right now, he's kind of showing me average to below average numbers, and hopefully he has a bounce back year, but Binnington needs to kind of more focus on keeping pucks out of the net than instigating fights. So when I look at this St. Louis Blues roster, they got some talent. And, maybe have some prospects come in, maybe make an impact in a bottom 6 role. But currently, right now, with the Blues, do I think they're good enough to make another playoff run? When I'm looking at the teams in front of him, Colorado Avalanche, Dallas Stars, Minnesota Wild. I mean, the Winnipeg Jets, for all their issues they've dealt with, I think are a little bit better. Nashville, I think, is still better. I don't think the St. Louis Blues are a playoff hockey team. I think they have enough talent to make it interesting, maybe be in that wild card race. I'm just not sure enough if the sum of their parts are good enough to be a playoff team. I'm not a big believer in their defense. I'm hoping that proves me wrong. Binnington's got to kind of have a bounce back year. It's, 2 back-to-back down years. Or is he just going to, it's just going to be interesting to see how that shakes out for right now. So if I was going to have to make a, opinion, I'm not sure the St. Louis Blues currently constructed are good enough to get back into a wild card spot. But hey, who knows? They could always prove me wrong. Getting into the next team, let me just type this out. The Winnipeg Jets, actually, just talked about them. Let's go right there over to Winnipeg. Winnipeg Jets 2.5 available in cap space. And the Winnipeg Jets, it was an interesting thing because, Hellebuck wanted out and rumorly, and, players weren't happy. They didn't deal him. They got rid of Blake Wheeler. And I don't think that's necessarily a great... Let me share this tab. That'd be a smart thing. I don't think that's really a great indication of how well Blake Wheeler was perceived by management. But they have 2.5 available in cap space. Still have some draft picks. They traded away their second this year. Who did they trade it to, actually? Just quick look. Trying to remember that. Okay, yep, Nashville. Okay. So let's get into the depth charts of the Winnipeg Jets. So you still have a pretty solid roster here. You got Kyle Connor, Mark Scheifele, Velarde they traded for the LA Kings. I like Velarde a lot. He shows a lot of good flashes. He looked pretty damn good too. In the postseason, I liked a lot of his game, so I think that's a pretty solid first line. Especially if Velarde can kind of fulfill his potential and stay available on the ice. Second line, you got Niederreiter, Perfetti, and Ehlers. Ehlers, he's a hell of a player. He's healthy. In 45 games played, he had 38 points. He stays healthy. That's a really good second line. Niederreiter, he's around a 40, maybe 50 50 point guy. Perfetti, he's a young center. He keeps improving, had 30 points in 51 games played. If he can be around 40, 50, I think the second line, that's a solid second line overall. Is it one of the best in the league? No, but it's solid enough. And then you got Iafallo, Lowry, and Appleton. Iafallo and Lowry, good depth pieces, good, in your top 9 and your third line, that's not bad at all. Appleton, for him, 16 points. So what would that be on? Yeah, that'd be on a 32-point pace. In your third line, that's not too bad. And then in your fourth line, you got Baron Kupari. I'm going to butcher this one. Name Stinkov. I'm sorry. I have to hear names a few times. It's been a while since I've even heard that name, so it's like trying to remember that. I'm going to call him Vlad. That's going to be far easier for my dumb ass. But, that's a solid enough bottom line, fourth line in the Winnipeg Jets. I like some of the talent up front. I'm expecting Velarde to kind of have a breakout year. He has all the offensive pieces talents and attributes you'd want out of a top winger. I like Velarde, center/right wing. And what I saw from him last year, I was a big kind of fan of what I saw. So I'm hoping and kind of expecting him to have I'm not saying 100 points, but maybe around 60s, maybe 70 points if he stays on that top line. Scheifele and Connor are friggin' great. Connor's a fantastic player. So, I think overall, when I'm looking at this offense, Ehlers is really good. Niederreiter, I think, solid middle six guy. They got some pieces here. It kind of reminds me in some shape or form, not completely, kind of like a Carolina in the way that in the middle six, they just have good depth scoring. Nobody that's going to really stand out to you crazy, but Ehlers, I think, would be one of that guy who kind of stands out. But outside of Ehlers, you have just good depth scoring in the middle six of the Winnipeg Jets. So they should be, a solid offensive team. Going into the defense, Morrissey is a fantastic defenseman. Good offense, 76 points in 78 games played. Pretty decent in his own end. Not decent, pretty good in his own end. 28 years old, so he's still going to be in his prime for a bit. Then you got DeMello, Sandberg, Neil Pionk, who went from the New York Rangers. Kind of found a decent role for him, 33 points in 82 games played. Not a great plus-minus, so I would have to look more into the defensive metrics with him, but I think for a top 4 second pairing guy, that's not bad. And he had 21 minutes time on ice, so you're hoping that defensively he can be good enough to, stem the tide. Now, bottom pairing, you got Dylan and Heinola. And, that's a young defenseman. So you're hoping him in a third pairing role. It's not going to be too much for him. He's an RFA in 2024. Will he be good enough? That's going to be interesting to see. Let me actually look at the scratches right here. You got Nate Schmidt. Yeah, I think Nate Schmidt will probably be getting quite a bit of time as well. 71 games played. Yeah, I think Nate Schmidt is obviously an upgrade over either of those guys. I think Schmidt will probably be that guy in that bottom pairing. Maybe even battling for that top 4 spot because Nate Schmidt's a solid defenseman. And you're paying him $5.9 million. Cap friendly, it's interesting. I know some of this stuff is a little bit wacky due to training camp, but yeah, I think Nate Schmidt's going to be utilized. He's not going to be a healthy scratch all the time. And then in goal, you got Connor Hellebuck and Brossoit. Brossoit played pretty damn well. I don't know if this is pointless to bring up, but when the Vegas Golden Knights were in the playoffs, he was doing pretty decent, and then he got hurt. Yeah, I think Brossoit, 11 games played, 2.17 goals against average, a 927 save percentage. Brossoit was pretty steady. I think that's a very good backup. But the interesting guy here is Connor Hellebuck, one of the best goaltenders in all of the NHL. 64 games played, 2.49 goals against average, a 920 save percentage. And, there was rumors of him wanting to be traded, wanted to be out of Winnipeg, didn't want to be in this situation. He wanted to be competing. And they kept him. I mean, he's got a contract until the end of this year, so he's going to be a free agent. Will they be able to re-sign him? There's a lot of interesting conversation regarding that. Will the Winnipeg Jets be able to retain him? And with some of the moves here, I think that Winnipeg wants to try to have a kind of a buy-in year right now. They want to try to go as high as they can in the playoffs, to go as deep as they can, as I should say. And with Connor Hellebuck, it's just a travesty because that guy's such a damn good goaltender. And I believe he's easily capable enough to win a Stanley Cup. He's got the talent. He's got everything you want in a goaltender. So I think with Connor Hellebuck, easily see him as one of the top-tier goaltenders in the NHL. So I like their goaltending situation quite a bit. If I was to say, where do I think the Winnipeg Jets are going to finish? Last year, they finished in a wild card spot, just behind not just behind, but behind the Minnesota Wild, and I think they'll be able to battle again for a wild card spot. I think they have some nice pieces here. I like some of the things that they have done in the off season. They've added a little bit more talent. I think they could maybe even finish with around 100 points if everything breaks out accordingly. I do like the Winnipeg Jets quite a bit. I see them back in wild card contention. And will they be able to fight for a top 3? I mean, it's going to be interesting, right? Because if Gustafsson falls off a little bit, I could see them maybe pushing for that 3rd spot in this division in the Central, but I don't really foresee that happening. But I think the Jets are, all things considered, they have a pretty damn good roster, and they should be competing for that 3rd spot, if not wild card spot, in the Western Conference, or the 3rd in their Central Division. Going to the next team. And we'll go to a team, quack, the Anaheim Ducks. I missed the Anaheim Mighty Ducks. That was kind of a fun thing back in the day. Over $10 million available in cap space for the Anaheim Ducks. One player over the roster. They'll have that adjusted before. Have quite a bit of draft capital going forward. So the Ducks, they got some pieces. They got, you got Zegras, you got Terry. Henrique, I think, is a quality enough player when he can play a full season. Zegras is young. Kind of an interesting just an interesting conversation they're having with him and his contract. He's looked at a face of the NHL. I mean, heck, was it last year they had him on the cover of the NHL game? Troy Terry, I think, is pretty good in his own right. I don't know if Zegras is good enough defensively, but he's got a lot of offensive skill. Zegras and Terry Henrique, that's an okay first line. But then when you get down lower in their lineup, you kind of see why the Anaheim Ducks are not necessarily considered a great team. You got Frank Vatrano on your second line, and this is not hate towards Vatrano. I think he's got a hell of a shot, and he's a local boy in the Mass area, but he's more of a third line role guy to me. I don't envision him, when he's in your top 6, you have problems. And then you got Mason McTavish as a young player, another center, 43 points in 8 games played last season. You hope he takes another step. Ryan Strome, 41 points, 82 games played. That's okay production. I just, in an ideal situation, you kind of want a little bit more from second liners. And then kind of going into the third line, you got Max Jones, 19 points in 69 games played. That's okay. Brock McGinn, 19 points in 75 games played. That's not great for third line. You got Leo Carlson, where they took him 2nd overall. A lot of people thought they'd go with Adam Fantilli. They said, nah, fuck that. We're going to go. We liked Swedish, so we went with the Swede. Leo Carlson, though, is a pretty damn good prospect. I do worry when I'm looking at the Ducks. Look at 22, 20, and then 18 is like your top 3 centers. It's a lot of youth. That's a lot of inexperience. And I think with the Ducks, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's good to go with youth in some regard, but I feel like you need a veteran presence there to help them learn. and how to be a proper center. And I think that would have been nice if they could bring in a veteran center, maybe possibly move Zegras to the wing, but really wasn't as much out there. But Leo Carlsson, he's a rookie. I'm not expecting much. I think he's got a lot of potential, but from rookies, I'm not expecting them to light it up and have like a point per game pace. That's unrealistic. So, I mean, successful season for him with the talent around him, maybe around 40 points. So it's going to be interesting. He could have more than that, could have less than that. I'm not sure with the Ducks roster around him if it's good enough. You got Silverberg, Carrick, and Leeson on the fourth line, and that's for a fourth line. That's not, I guess, terrible. Now, defense. Cam Fowler, he's been around there for a bit. Kind of has, he was taken 12th in 2010, as it says. Fowler's not, he's got a name, $6.5 million, 48 points, 82 games played, decent point production on the back end. But the Ducks are so bad, it's hard to tell when you watch these games if it's the players at times or just the system altogether. They ended up getting Radu Gudas, who, if you watch the playoffs with the Florida Panthers, was a physical presence. And I don't think this would... I think if Gudas is in your top, is your number one pairing, that's a problem. I don't think he's a number one pairing defenseman. I think he's a guy that's, solid and maybe a second pairing, but more ideally. He's a big physical defenseman. And I just don't know if he brings enough in other aspects of his game to really be a great top pairing guy. Then you got Hogg and you got Lyubushkin, Colton White, and Vakanainen. Vakanainen can't stay healthy, so it's kind of hard to tell him. And yeah, it's kind of like a below average decor for me. Nothing really amazing there. The best defenseman they have on this roster, I think, as a defenseman, as a pure defensively, is probably maybe Gudas. Fowler is in that conversation. If he gets paired with, maybe Gudas will be a bit of a better fit for him. But the defense here, the Ducks, just not that great. I don't see a lot of talent on the back end. And then going to the goaltender, you got John Gibson and Alex Stalock. Now, Gibson was rumored also in some trade talks saying, hey, like, is he going to be moved? Is it possible for him to be moved on from? Didn't end up getting traded. Gibson, .899 save percentage, 3.99 goals against average. It's hard to tell with Gibson because the team around him is just not very good, and this guy's been getting shell-shocked. Some people think that he might be washed. Some people think that he's past his prime. Some people just think it's the team he's in. It's kind of hard to tell because the team that the Ducks are for the last few seasons has not been good. John Gibson was looked at as one of the better goaltenders in all of the NHL just a few years ago. He's only 30 years old. It's not like the guy is ancient, but with all this wear and tear on him, I kind of wonder how much for his mental psyche he could take much more of losing in Anaheim. I mean, you could probably have a prime Patrick Waugh behind this team, and he'd probably be like enough, please, trade me. So Stalock and Gibson, I think, solid enough. Stalock had a little bit better numbers in fewer games played, but nothing crazily better. With the Ducks, I don't think the goaltending is necessarily the issue. I just think the whole system, the defense isn't great, so the goaltenders can get kind of exposed. So where do I think that the Anaheim Ducks are going to finish in the Pacific? I think pretty much right back where they were, towards the bottom end of the Pacific Division. I don't think they're that great. I just don't think the Ducks are a great team. So I think there's some young, promising players here, right? You got some young, promising players like with Zegras and Terry, Leo Carlsson, McTavish. You have some potential here. I just think as of right now, this version right now of the team is just not that great. So I don't think they'll be really in a playoff. They'll be nowhere near the playoffs. I just don't see it. Hope I'm wrong, but I just don't see that going forward. So we'll go into the next team, the Calgary Flames, baby. Calgary Flames. This was a team. They're 213,000 over the cap. They'll definitely make something. Craig Conroy's general manager brought in. Ryan Huska, head coach. So the Flames were very, very disappointing last year. Is an understatement. They were not good. Not what people thought they'd be. They finished 5th in the Pacific with 93 points. Didn't get a wild card spot. It just... you expected more. I mean, they were only a couple points back from Winnipeg, but yeah, I mean, the Calgary Flames massively disappointed. They ended up dealing Tkachuk, and then Tkachuk. I mean, to be fair, the Panthers weren't great in the regular season. They got really hot towards the end. Then Tkachuk became a monster. Tkachuk was a damn good player throughout the whole season. It wasn't really on him why the Panthers were underperforming. But, you traded Tkachuk in a deal with Tkachuk and Weegar. You dealt him. Dealt Weegar and Huberdeau. It's just Huberdeau. And didn't work out. So Huberdeau was massively disappointing last year. 79 games played, 15 goals, 40 assists for 55 points. Not good. Not good for a guy that's going to be making over $10 million. Not good enough. I mean, Huberdeau is a playmaker. He is a player that, sets up. And looking at his career, right? Season prior was a career year for him. He went back to his average pretty much. I mean, yeah, there's some years actually, to be fair to him, less games played, 78 points in 69 games played, 61 and 55 games played. So maybe I'm being a bit unfair, but, Huberdeau, he regressed massively. And I think a lot of it's due to going to a new situation, not necessarily having as good line mates, or maybe like fit line mates, like as a match, as a play style. And, 115 points, do I see him as a consistent 115-point scorer? If he has a good sniper on his line, yeah, but I don't think Huberdeau is a guy that drives the line. He's more of a complementary piece. So, I mean, he's got to be better. So, Huberdeau, Lindholm, and Makapani. Lindholm, he's also been talked about in some trade talks. He's a pretty good center. 64 points, 80 games played. Good two-way center. 4.85 cap hit. That's reasonable. He is up. His contract is up. So that's going to be interesting to see how that shakes out. But, the first line, I mean, I'm expecting Huberdeau to do a little bit better this year, right? Maybe not 100 points, but he should be around 70. I mean, you're getting paid $10.5 million. You better be producing at least decently. And then another guy that I felt kind of underperformed was Nazem Kadri, 66 points in 82 games played. And I don't really think that's Kadri's fault. I think that's due to him being completely overpaid for what he actually is. Kadri's not a prolific point scorer. He shouldn't be making $7 million, in my opinion. I think Kadri's a solid center, okay, second, third line center. When he was on the Avalanche, he won a cup, but I mean, you have a team with McKinnon, Rantanen, Landeskog when he was healthy. What did you expect? Like Cale Makar. That was a fantastic hockey team. It's not like Nazem Kadri. I'm not saying he wasn't a valuable part of that team, but it's not like he drove the Avalanche to a cup. So the $7 million, in my opinion, was a massive overpay. And the problem that I look at with the Flames is there's some, decent young players. Ruzicka, he could be some pretty solid. Serengovic, I think he could be some decent. But there's nobody on this roster that puts the fear of God in you. I think at best is an average NHL offense. Because, Backlund, 56 points in 82 games played, but he's 34. And you can't really expect him. Backlund ideally at 56 points on third line, that's fantastic. But, Kadri, you just need better production. I think 56 points in 82 games played, maybe that's not terrible. That isn't terrible for a second line center. But Kadri would just disappear at times for stretches. There'd be moments we play really well, then he would disappear. And it would just get infuriating. I think defensively he also wasn't that good as well. Fourth line, you got Coleman, Schwind, Dewar. Yeah, I think when I'm looking at the Calgary Flames, I'm looking at a very average offense, maybe below average in some stances. And I want to keep them away from below average because I'm looking at the depth. I think the depth's decent enough, but they're going to need Coronado, Schwind, to be productive as young players at the NHL level. And can they be? We'll see. Defense. Mackenzie Weegar, solid season. 4 goals, 27 assists for 31 points in 81 games played, plus 15. I got Rasmus Anderson, Noah Hanifin, Christopher Tanev, Nikita Zadorov. Solid players. Average, maybe be above average defensively. Tanev, can he stay healthy? Can he play a full season? Hannafin, I think, is quality. Yeah, I mean, it's decent. I think Uyghur was better than Huberdeau last season, if we're going to make that comparison. So, I mean, defensively, I don't think the Flames are atrocious. Then getting into goaltending. I mean, Jacob Markstrom's got to be far better than he is. Not saying the team in front of him was spectacular, because at times it just wasn't. It wasn't great in front of him. But, he got paid that contract, expected to be the number one, and he just sucked, to be honest. Like 59 games played, 2.92 goals against average, 892 save percentage. Not good enough. There was moments where Markstrom just looked like he had all the confidence ripped from him. Daniel Vladar was not better, pretty much the same statistics. 2.91 goals against average, 892 save percentage, 27 games played. But like with Vladar, I'll give him this. Like, he looked decent in like that time when he played for the Flames for a bit. But he's a backup. When you watch Vladar in Providence, he was a backup. I don't think he was going to be anything more than a backup at the NHL level, so I'm not like as intense on Vladar. Markstrom's the guy you paid a bunch of money to. Now, with Dustin Wolf being in the situation and really good, played amazing in their AHL affiliate, maybe Wolf gets some time. Maybe they move on from one of these goalies. Maybe they try to move Vladar. Maybe they try to move Markstrom. That'll be interesting to see. I don't know if anyone takes that 6 cap unless they retain like half, but I mean, the goaltending situation could be decent if I think Dustin Wolf gets a little bit of a chance to play. I mean, I know the Carolina Hurricanes with Kochetkov, they kind of have like a 3 goalie rotation with Anderson, Ranta, and Kochetkov. Maybe they do something similar in Calgary where they call up Wolf for some games. I mean, that's also a possibility, but they got to be far better in net. They got to be far better, because if they're not, the Flames are going to be missing the playoffs again. And like looking at, the teams in the Pacific, I mean, Vegas, they won the Cup. Edmonton Oilers, they have McDavid, Draisaitl, have so much talent. The LA Kings got a couple players move. Korpisalo is no longer there. I'm not as, they took some hits. Seattle Kraken, they pretty much have similar roster. I mean, if Grubauer can channel that playoff form in the regular season, they'll be a little bit better. When I look at the Calgary Flames, I mean, they do have the talent to make a wild card spot, maybe flirt for the third in the Pacific Division, but it's just there are some question marks I have. Will Huberdeau bounce back? Will Huberdeau bounce back? Will Lindholm, Lindholm keep producing? Will Kadri be better defensively? Will some of these young players like Coronado, will he come into his own and really kind of even score around 30, 40 points, be impactful in a bottom 6 role on this roster? Will Markstrom and Vladar have bounce back years? I mean, I'm more expecting Markstrom to bounce back. I mean, he's shown to have he'd be a fighter in his career, going from the Florida Panthers, who thought he was a failed prospect, to the Vancouver Canucks, found his game in the last couple seasons there, and then to Calgary, he gets paid. I mean, I think Markstrom does have the mentality to persevere. He needs to bounce back. If the Flames are going to go anywhere this season, it's Markstrom. Markstrom has to produce. He has to be good this year. Do I think they have the talent to be a wild card team? Absolutely, but there are some question marks there. Now, going to the next team here, the Edmonton Oilers, currently $390,000 over the cap. They'll figure some way to figure that out. And you have the best player in the world with Connor McDavid, 153 points. I don't think I do that in my build on my Be a Pro career sometimes. That is so stupid. I'm sorry. 153 points. That's so crazy. Evander Kane, Connor McDavid, Connor Brown. Yeah, I think. Yeah, I mean, with Connor McDavid, that's going to be an amazing top line. I think Evander Kane, he had that really gruesome injury. So he missed significant time last year, half the season, 28 points, 41 games played. And when he came back, he wasn't, it seemed like he was kind of trying to get back to him. Yeah, I think any line with Connor McDavid, there's going to be just absolutely dynamic. I'm not really worried about them offensively. Do I think Connor Brown? I mean, that would be interesting. Connor Brown would have the best year of his career if that's how it shakes out. But going to the second line, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Draisaitl, and Hyman. Hyman's really good year last year, over a point per game, 83 points in 79 games played. Draisaitl had 128 points in 80 games played, and Nugent-Hopkins had 104 points in 82 games played. The Oilers, I don't even question their offense. They have enough offense. The only thing I would question on their forwards would probably be the bottom two lines. You would want a little bit more production. McLeod, Yarmark, Fogle, Holloway, Peterson, Derek Ryan. You need at least a few of those players in that third line to score at least around 30 points, just in my personal opinion, if they're going to be good enough with secondary scoring. Some of these guys are young, like McLeod. Maybe he kind of takes another step. He had 23 points, 57 games, 7 games played. So, I mean, ideally, he'd be around 30, maybe 40 points if he picks up the pace at stretches. Yeah, I mean, Oilers, health provided, going to be one of the best offenses in the league just because you got McDavid, Draisaitl, and honestly, the complementary pieces of Evander Kane, Zach Hyman, Nugent-Hopkins is like really good. On most teams, some of those guys would be on first lines. So offensively, I'm not worried about the Oilers. Defense, Darnell Nurse, Cody Ceci, Matthias Ekholm. I love that addition. I think Ekholm was fantastic for the Nashville Predators for such a long time. Evan Bouchard, I mean, he showed a lot of his skill set, especially in the postseason. He had 40 points in 82 games played. Brett Kulak and Deschanais. Yeah, I mean, Evan Bouchard, it's important. He takes another step. He's a bigger guy at 6'3", has really good hands, offensively talented, has a hell of a shot. This guy's got a rocket. I think him and Ekholm would be a perfect pairing. Ekholm is very good offensively as well, but solid in his own end. He's not like one of these one-dimensional defensemen that's only good on the offensive side of the ice. So I think having him with Bouchard is perfect. Darnell Nurse is massively overpaid at 9.25 in my personal opinion, but, you know, he's a solid defenseman. And then Cody Ceci, with the great guys, is a competent NHL defenseman. I think if the Edmonton Oilers are going to win a cup, I don't know how they would swing it because they'd have to move some player with significant cap. But if they had another defenseman, like another top 4 quality defenseman on this roster, I could see them winning a cup. I'm not as sure on the bottom pairing. If they had another defenseman, I do think they're in the conversation to win a cup. But, I mean, the defense is pretty solid. You got some stars there with Ekholm. Nurse's quality. Is he 9.25? No. Ivan Bouchard's a young, promising defenseman. But, yeah, I think if the Oilers could add a defenseman and somehow make up cap space somewhere, I think they'd be in a better spot. Goaltending, Stuart Skinner and Jack Campbell. Jack Campbell, you paid $5 million. That was a travesty last year. .888 save percentage, a 21-9 record. I mean, not terrible considering that the goals against average save wasn't great. Stuart Skinner took the job. 2.75 goals against average, 913 save percentage, 50 games played. Stuart Skinner was, pretty solid last year. A young goaltender kind of coming into his own. Jack Campbell can't be as bad as he was last season, right? Like, there's going to be some type of improvement in his production, I'm assuming. Maybe I'm wrong to assume that, but last year, there's got to be some improvement. He can't be as bad as that going forward. Stuart Skinner, who's a young goaltender, who I saw some people criticize in the playoffs. Yeah, he did lit in a couple of softies, but he's a young goalie. He's got a big frame. I think there's room for improvement there. Am I saying he takes the next step and becomes elite? No, but I think he could probably take another step in his play and be like an above average. I actually kind of thought he was that last year, but yeah, like about above average goaltender. And I think with the offensive firepower with the Oilers, there's definitely, I think goaltending will be good enough for them to get back in the playoffs. Obviously, they finished second last year in the Pacific, 109 points, 2 behind the Vegas Golden Knights. Which, I mean, Vegas had a crazy year considering all the goalies they went through. The Oilers, though, they got so much goddamn offense. I mean, they had 325 goals for. That is wild. Team in second, and that was Seattle. And they had 289. That is wild. That is wild production. That is massively wild production. So I think for me, when I'm looking at the Oilers, I see them finishing first or second in their division in the Pacific. It's going to be a battle. I think offensively they got some good pieces. They got some of the best players in the world. Defensively, I think they're pretty solid. I love for them to add another guy. And then goaltending, I think Skinner's good enough. And I'm assuming Jack Campbell, or I should say I'm expecting Jack Campbell to have somewhat of a bounce back year. Am I saying Campbell's going to have like a 920 save percentage flirting with a Vezina type? No. But I see him at like maybe a 905, 910, right? At the very least. Right? Maybe I'm being a little bit too optimistic, but I don't think he'll be as bad as he was last year. I think the Oilers have a really good roster, all things considered, and they should be in a position to be back towards the top of that division. Los Angeles Kings, next team. A team that battled the Oilers pretty good in the playoffs. 123,000 available in cap space. Good old Rob Blake. Y'all watch Rob Blake. Y'all older viewers like me, you watch Rob Blake. That guy was a stud as a defenseman. So, LA Kings. Let's look at it. Quinton Byfield, Kopitar, and Kempe. Byfield, I liked what I saw from him in the postseason. I saw some maturation. Big guy. I think, him being at the NHL roster, kind of learning from Kopitar, people looked at him as the center of the future. I still think he's going to be a center maybe in a year or two. But, Byfield has some good offensive talent. Taken second in the 2020 NHL draft. He was just raw. 53 games played, 3 goals, 19 assists for 22 points. I could see Byfield doing even a little bit better. I think him going down, the Ontario Reign for a little bit, was good for him. But Kopitar, 74 points in 82 games played. Guy's been around for a minute. Still one of the best centers in the NHL. Getting paid like it too, $10 million. My man's still producing. And Kempe, 40 goals last season, 41 goals, 26 assists, 67 points. That's a pretty, damn good line. I could see Fiala switching out with Byfield. Potentially, or maybe they keep it balanced and kind of just, have the scoring spread out through the lineup. That would probably make a little bit more sense, honestly, having Fiala with PLD and Kaliev. But, looking at the top 6, Fiala, Dubois, Kaliev, pretty damn steady. And PLD, he had a pretty damn good year, 63 points in 73 games played. Will he be able to kind of keep up that production? I'm hoping so. Fiala, good year as well, over a point per game pace. Yeah, I like it. And Kaliev's a young guy who looked good in the postseason as well. So when I'm looking at this top 6, I'm liking what I'm seeing. So a mixture of youth and some veterans. And that's the beauty, right? Like you have Byfield with Kopitar and Kempe. Let's say that's how the line shake out. I'm not saying that's how it is, but let's just, in theory, right? 2 veterans with a young guy. Fiala and Dubois, regardless of what you think of PLD, been around for a little bit. Good with a young guy. That's what you want. You want some experience with some youth, and they can kind of help guide them through some rough patches that young players are going to have. Then you have on the bottom 6, Trevor Moore, Philip Deneau, Arvidsson, Grundstrom, Lizotte, and Lewis. Third line, Deneau, Arvidsson, 54, 56 points, 54, 59 points respectively. Moore, on pace for around, maybe 40 points. That's good third line scoring. And then, fourth line, maybe this sounds blasphemous to some people. Fourth line, I think it's decent enough. I'm not looking at my fourth line to score a crazy amount of points. Your fourth line center scoring 34 points is actually pretty ridiculous point production. And looking 19 and 57 and 20 and 82 games played for Lewis, it's not bad at all. They got some good depth scoring, and a lot of this is going to hinge on Byfield and Kaliev and how well they play this upcoming season. Will they take that next step? Will they keep improving? If that's the case, the Kings are going to be looking like a pretty dangerous team offensively. Now, defense. Michael Anderson, Drew Doughty. Drew Doughty's been around for a minute. You got Vlad Gavrikov. He played well. You got Matt Waugh. Or is it Roy for him? I forget. But, Andres Englund, Brent Clark. Clark, taken high, so you're expecting him, it was 8th in the 2021 draft, expecting him to kind of hit. Gavrikov, he's brought into the fold, to kind of be that guy. Drew Doughty's been a quality defenseman for such a long time. He's being paid like it's still. So, Anderson, Doughty, Gavrikov, solid, and then you're hoping Clark hits as a young guy. He hopes he's only 20 years old. I don't like to expect, like I said, a ton from younger players. I want them to, I don't have a huge amount of expectations. But, defense, I mean, pretty solid. I think LA is usually pretty decent in their own end because the forwards also help out. Going into the goaltending, this is the interesting thing, and I know a lot of it was probably due to Cap situation, but not having Korpisalo come back, I think hurts the Kings quite a bit. Phoenix Copley, he came out after. What's the kid's name? The kid from the Flyers got traded to the Flyers. Why am I blanking on his name? But when Copley essentially came out of nowhere, right, and helped the Kings win a lot of games. 24-6 record is pretty damn solid, right? I think he's a good backup at the NHL level. I don't know if he's really a starter. And some of you might argue, well, hey, and Kaliev was just suspended for 2 games, so he'll miss the first 2 games. So Kaliev is not going to play 82 games this season, maybe 80 at the most. Sorry, that just came across. But when I'm looking at the goaltending of the LA Kings, is Cam Talbot going to be Cam Talbot? I'm not sure. I hate being rough. It's just Talbot, 8.98 save percentage, 17-14 record, 2.93 goals against average. Ended up, he was looked at as a guy for the Senators that was going to bring stability. Didn't really end up happening. I know there were some injuries. I think Talbot can be a decent enough goaltender, but I don't know. I'm not really big. I'm not big on this goaltending tandem because I think it could come to bite them in the ass. I think Phoenix Copley in a backup role, good. Talbot, I think ideally at this point in his career, probably better as a backup. But outside of that, not so much. I'm not as big on them. And Cal Peterson. I had to look it up because I was blanking on his damn name because Cal Peterson was looked at as like the heir apparent to Jonathan Quick. And then Peterson kind of just, the wheels fell off. Let's just put that silly. So, will the Kings be back in playoff contention? Looking at what they did last season, they finished 3rd in the Pacific Division in 104 points, 47 wins, 25 losses, 10 overtime losses. I could see them finishing 3rd. I think Vegas and the Oilers are still better than the Kings. I think Vegas and the Oilers have better goaltending, even though I'm not necessarily super, super high on Stuart Skinner. I think Skinner is still a solid goalie. I'm not as sure on Copley or Talbot. I'm just not. So that's going to be interesting to see how that shakes out. But I still think they have 3rd just because the offense is really good with young players. Defense is pretty good with some young players. You're hoping that when the younger defenseman, Clark hits, right? So I think there's some good mixture of right now solid players, but some youth coming into with some good potential. I'm just unsure of the goaltending. I think 3rd is probably best where they finish in this division, and I could maybe see them slipping to a wild card spot. But I just think overall their roster is really talented. I'm more envisioning them in a 3rd finish in the Pacific Division. I think the LA Kings have a pretty damn good roster, all things considered. So that's kind of the LA Kings. Got a few more teams. How many more teams? I got the Sharks, Canucks, and the Golden Knights. Let's go to the San Jose Sharks. I was a big fan of the Sharks when I was a kid just because the logo looks so damn cool. When they were an expansion team. 3.216 available in cap space. Oh, well, that'd be smart to share the tab, Paul, wouldn't it? Yes, it would be. So Mike Greer, general manager. David Quinn, head coach. A couple first-round picks, second-round picks this upcoming year. The San Jose Sharks shocked the world. I don't know. So, you got Logan Couture, Kunin, Barbanov, and Tomas Hertl, Mike Hoffman, Anthony Duclair. Duclair they brought in from the Florida Panthers. I think okay. I think maybe potential to be okay. Average at best up top. The big guy here for me with the Sharks, the guy who has the biggest chance here is Philip Zadina. He bought into himself. Completely agreed to terminate that contract with the Red Wings, which he getting paid more. Took a $1.1 million deal with the Sharks. only 23 years old, is showing flashes of potential. Filip Zadina should be battling for a top spot on this team. If Filip Zadina can't get top line minutes with the Sharks, that's not good. That's not good because Zadina's got a lot of skill. For me, when I look at this Sharks team, are they going to be in contention? Not to ruin the video or this segment, no. But you're hoping certain players have good years. And I'm rooting for Filip Zadina. I love when a player buys into themselves. So, I mean, like with Zadina, Tomas Hertl, I think Logan Couture, they should be decent. And what is this? Is this injury week to week? Some of the cat friendly is not updated, so I don't know if that's like from last year or what. But I mean, offensively, you got Zadina, Granlund, LeBlanc, Lindblom, Sturm, Zetterlund. There's nobody here that really wows you. You're just hoping some of the guys like Couture, Hertl, and a guy like Zadina just hit it. That's what you're hoping for. If you're a Sharks fan, you just want to watch some good, decent, entertaining hockey. Now, Erik Karlsson, they ended up trading to the Pittsburgh Penguins. So, the offensive production and the defense is not as good. I think that goes without the saying. So, you got Ferraro, Benning, Vlasic, Ruda, Simic, and Burrows. And not really a great decor. Not saying some of these players weren't very good in their prime. Like Vlasic, I thought was a pretty solid player. But not the greatest decor. So, probably below average decor in the NHL. Going into the goaltending. Kakinen, you're hoping is okay. 883 save percentage, 3.85 goals against average. The big guy here is Mackenzie Blackwood. He had an 893 save percentage and a 3.20 goals against average. He was looked at as the guy going forward with the New Jersey Devils. Just didn't pan out. Just did not pan out for Blackwood, because when Blackwood was looked at one time with the New Jersey Devils, sharing these stats here. First year, 918 save percentage, 2.61 goals against average. 10-10 record, not terrible. Year after that, 915. You're like, okay, we got ourselves a prospect. 47 games played, 915, 2.77 goals against average, 3 shutouts, so 3 shutties. But just due to injuries and shit, like last couple seasons have been below 900. His third season, which 3 years ago, was 902, just barely above 900. You're hoping Mackenzie Blackwood can stay healthy, because I think there is a good goaltender in Blackwood. I think he's still a very capable goaltender in there, but just health provided with him, and that's just the biggest question mark. So, you're gonna have some younger players. Maybe you have Eklund kind of get some time this year. You have really good young players that they're gonna just give shots to. They're not in a situation to play. Will Smith won't be here. What did he commit to Boston College, if I remember correctly? It's just they got some good draft picks. I think in a few years, the San Jose Sharks will be in a position to be competitive and win. So where do I think they're going to finish? Pretty much around the same spot. Maybe in 8th. I don't know. It's the San Jose Sharks will not be very good this year. They got rid of Erik Karlsson. There's just not much as talent in San Jose, so I think pretty much a similar bottom of the division finish. Not to be pessimistic too, because if you're a San Jose Shark fan, I'm not trying to hate on you. It's just I look at the team, I don't think it's good right now, but you have so much young prospects, so many young prospects, so much potential for the future, and that's what you got to kind of look at. Just look at it, the team, and my personal, because I've done this for years. The Bruins are really bad. Certain young players, you're like, okay, well, the team might not suck, but this guy's going to be fun to watch. That's kind of how the mentality you got to have kind of going into it. I don't think the Sharks are there yet. So we got 2 more teams left. I've already done the Seattle Kraken, so you can definitely check that out, the Seattle Kraken video. It's in the playlist if you look at the playlist on my channels. So the Vancouver Canucks, 2.042 over the cap. They'll do some adjustment there to make that fit. The Vancouver Canucks. It's a team of just constant disappointment for a lot of its fans, and it's beautiful. Like, if you've ever been to Vancouver, it's a beautiful city. Beautiful city. Beautiful people. But, yeah. They didn't do so hot last year. Finished 6th in the Pacific. Going into this team, you know, Pettersson, young center, 102 points last year, 80 games played. Pretty damn good player. He had a really good year. Kuzmenko, I think, has a good, very good shot, good player in his own right. 74 points, 81 games played, 1 goal shy of 40 and at 39 goals. JT Miller, I mean, some Vancouver fans outright hate this man. 82 points and 81 games played. They don't think he's good defensively enough, and I think JT Miller can be a little bit lacking at times in the defensive end. Giuseppe. So let's just go into it. Beljuve. The top line is solid. I think Pettersson, Kuzmenko, solid. Giuseppe, JT Miller, Brock Besser. If Brock Besser can stay healthy, 55 points, 74 games played. I mean, Besser, quality NHLer. So, I mean, that top 6 ain't bad. Got Hoglander, Sutter, and Garland. Hoglander, you're hoping young guy, 22, 9 points, 25 games played. You're hoping he can kind of hit, right? And then on the 4th line, Amin, Bluger, and Stanika. Stanika, I'm gonna sound like a hater because I didn't mind him in Providence, but Stanika, I don't think he's NHL caliber. I don't think he's NHL. I don't think he's NHL talent. I don't think Stanika is NHL talent, but offensively, I mean, the Canucks are okay. They're solid. With me, I think offensively they can be pretty damn good, but then there's times where they just disappear. You got pieces like JT Miller, Pettersson, Kuzmenko, Besser's even solid. But, yeah. I mean, nobody here... they're going to be probably around league average, maybe below league average, depending on how the bottom 6 pairs out. But, I mean, yeah, I think... I'll say average, actually, because you got Pettersson, Kuzmenko I like quite a bit. JT Miller, he puts up points. Brock Besser is pretty solid as well, even though it feels like he's kind of lost a step when you watch him play. But and I know he's only 26. He doesn't. Maybe that's just my opinion. I just think he's lost like a little bit of speed for him. But offensively solid enough. I'm not the biggest fan of the 4th line. Not to sound like a hater. He's a Jack Stanika, but hey, that's just me. I'm gonna hate. Going into the defense, you got Quinn Hughes, 76 games, 76 points and 78 games played. Monster time on ice, 25 minutes time on ice, plus 15. You got Cole McWard, Saucy, Tyler Myers, Ian Cole, Hornwreck. Ooh, Tyler Myers is not an NHL defenseman at times to me. I hate Tyler Myers. He's like a turntable. 6'8", big body. He's like what Myers reminds me of is like guys like Hal Gill that were like okay, nothing crazy, but just because they're big they stay in the league. He's getting paid $6 million. That's a mass overpay. Defensively, I'm not. I mean, Ian Cole's decent. I mean, defensively, I think they're okay at best. You got some star power in Quinn Hughes, but one man alone cannot carry a decor. So that's going to be interesting to see how that shapes out. Goaltenders, Thatcher Demko. They brought in Casey DeSmith as well. Casey DeSmith is shown to be a very solid backup. 38 games played, 3.17 goals against average, 905 save percentage. Casey DeSmith is a very good backup for Demko. Demko will have a bounce back year, I believe. 32 games played last year, 3.16 goals against average, 902 save percentage. I think he played a little bit healthy last year, and then they finally shut him down, got him out of the lineup. Demko, when healthy, is one of the best goalies in the world. I say that quite a bit with some of these guys. I'm not trying to make that phrase just go like, it means everybody. But, I mean, Demko is, when he's on, he's freaking good. Watched him at Boston College. I watched him throughout his career. Yeah, Demko is a really good goalie when healthy. So when I'm looking at the Vancouver Canucks, am I looking at a team that's, like, gonna... It's weird with the Canucks. They're not better than Vegas. They're not better than the Oilers. I don't believe they're better than the Kings. So then you kind of have to have that conversation. Are they good enough for a wild card spot? Could they fight for the Kraken? Maybe. I think Demko can, if he gets back to form, And that's going to be the main that's going to be the main ingredient here is if Thatcher Demko can go back to being Thatcher Demko, the Vancouver Canucks suddenly become like an actual threat in the wild card. But I'm not huge on the Canucks defense. I think offense, you got some nice pieces there, but I'm not. I think some of the core is not great. Some of the forward core is great, like not great in the bottom couple lines. But I mean, I think in the top two lines, you have some decent offensive production. But when you face those really good teams, you're going to need secondary scoring. I think this is difficult because I like some of the players here with the Canucks. I don't think they're good enough right now. I don't think they'll be in a playoff situation. You have, like I said, you have players that I like. Pettersson, Kuzmenko, JT Miller can kind of be up and down. Quinn Hughes is great on defense, and then you got Thatcher Demko should hopefully bounce back. But I just don't. Those few players to me aren't enough to overcompensate for some of the roster construction of this team. But that's just my opinion. I don't think they're going to be in the playoffs this year. Which is unfortunate because I think Pettersson is such a damn good player. He deserves to get some playoff action. Now, going to the last team of this list, wrapping up my season previews just all together. Let's go right into it. We're going to go right into the Vegas Golden Knights. Vegas Golden Knights here. Currently, 4.1 mil over the cap. Holy crap. Oh, but that's cap hit with LTI. Okay, so, I mean, they should... Who's out? I forget. Is it Robin Leonard still? I think that still technically counts. But let's look at this defending Stanley Cup champions. So they got Barbashev, Eichel, Marchessault. Eichel was fantastic during that Stanley Cup playoff run. He was really good. Superstar-type talent. Kind of showed what he really is. It was about a point per game last year. And, I think Michael's really good. And then on the second line, as they have Howden, Stevenson, and Stone. Stone's when healthy, when not dealing with his back issues, is really good. Wasn't a big fan of what happened with him in that AHL player where he just like down talking him. So it's kind of weird. But, Stevenson, really good second line center. And then, third line, you got Cotter, Carlson, Mario, and then third line, Guerrier, Waugh, and Colasar. So with the Knights, nobody really Eichel and Stone probably do. Nobody out here is like wows you, but if you look, it's just good depth scoring. And they're big. Smallest guys, Marchessault 5'9", and the rest of them are 6 foot plus. Big boys play a good two-way game, good defensive system. Vegas just wears you out. And I think Eichel will probably flirt with around 80, 90 points this season. I believe in him quite a bit. And if Stone can be healthy, I think he'll be around 80 points as well. Defense, one of the best D-cores in all of the NHL. Martinez, Pietrangelo, McNabb, Theodore, Whitecloud, Haig. Really good. Bottom pairing, still really good. One of the best bottom pairings in the league. Actually, the best bottom pairing in the league. This team is a load to play against. Martinez is 36 years old, but still looked elite. And in goal, you've got Adin Hill and Logan Thompson, which Adin Hill was spectacular in the postseason. We'll be able to replicate that type of performance all in the regular season. No, that's unrealistic, but Logan Thompson was an all-star. And, I just like them quite a bit. I think the situation with the Knights is that, you look at the offense, there's nobody that's like amazing, which I would kind of argue I think Eichel and Stone are kind of that caliber. But they just have good depth scoring, great defense, good goaltending. Yeah, I think Adin Hill and Logan Thompson should be pretty good again because of the system in front of them, but also they themselves are coming into their own. People want to discount Adin Hill, what he did last year, but there was times in those games that he made otherworldly type saves and played fantastic. So he was definitely well worth that Stanley Cup win. Adin Hill played great, and I'm good for him, right? Because what did he go? Arizona, then San Jose, comes into the Vegas organization and gets a chance, and he capitalizes. My man gets paid $4.9 million till 2025. Salute to you, Adin Hill. So where do I think the Vegas Golden Knights? This is going to be kind of easy for me. while I think the Oilers are better offensively, I think Vegas is far better defensively. I don't think the offense is a significant drop off, like as much people might say. I think, obviously the Oilers are far more explosive, but the Knights shown they are able to shut that down. So, Knights put up good secondary scoring. I think defensively are better than the Oilers. And I think the goaltending, due to the system in front of the Knights goaltenders and just the Knight goaltenders themselves, I think Hill and Thompson are both better than Skinner right now. If I was say that, so I finish them. I see them finishing in the first, maybe second if the Oilers can acquire another defenseman. But right now I envision the Vegas Golden Knights finishing first in this division. So that's gonna be wrapping up these season previews. It has been. I'm glad to get these finally done. It kind of sucks. A lot of the stuff was just completely corrupted with the file, so I'm finally glad to get this done, kind of taken care of. I appreciate everyone's massive support on the channel, reaching over 4,300 subscribers. Some of the videos have really hit off really well, and your guys' massive support helps out tremendously. To kind of wrap up this video, I'll say this. I'll be starting to do that podcast weekly on Fridays or Saturdays. I'm going to be starting up my job soon enough, so that might kind of be a flex situation where maybe I'm on the boat and I kind of have to do a podcast or something like that. But we're going to start doing more live content as well throughout the season. I'll kind of have a regular schedule for that kind of put to the side. But I appreciate all your support. You guys have been tremendous. If you have not already, I appreciate that subscribe button, like, comment down below. I'll see you guys in the next one. And man, who is excited for some hockey? Because I know I am. Great to be back, baby. Can't wait.